Welcome to Bulletcast, a bullet catcher gaming podcast. In this episode, we will be talking about what you don't want in the next Ghost Recon. Your host, Andy.
Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate that. The legend that is Grandpa 8up. Thank you so much for joining us. As 8up has just said, we're going to be discussing things that we don't want in the next Ghost Recon. And the reason that we're going to be doing that is because from a video from about 2 months ago, where we did a top 10 things that people didn't want and I didn't want in the next Ghost Recon. There were some really interesting comments. So we thought we'd go through some of them, and we've got some pretty awesome guests. We have our usual Sandilands. He's always around, bit of a legend in the community. Actually, we've got loads of legends from the community today, because we have the one and only AI BlueFox. We also have Vaandhar, and we also have the legend that is Money Mozart. And we also have good friend Vassilli from the French Ghost Recon Milsim community. So a nice mixture of people, and a lot of good people who do a lot of good work for the Ghost Recon community. So I'm going to start this as just a really open thing to start with. We've obviously done a survey. Now, if anyone hasn't done the survey, link is in the description below. Really important that you fill that out, because we do need feedback. We want to pass. We need Ubisoft to pay attention effectively. We need them to see what the community wants. Now, obviously, the point of this podcast is to discuss the things that we don't want. So let's start, first of all, before we look at some comments and things like that. What is, for anyone, this is open to anybody, what's the number one thing that you can think of off the top of your head that you think absolutely mustn't be in the next game? And I know that Vaandhar's going to jump straight in here. Come on, you start us off, dude.
I'll beat him. Gear score.
Yeah, gear score number one. Yeah, no sort of multicolored gear score, weapon grades, all that nonsense. Don't need it. Doesn't add any value.
Yeah, and do you know what? I haven't seen anybody of late at all saying, well, I actually like it. And don't get me wrong, there may be a few people, but I haven't seen it at all recently, people talking about that. Anyone else got any obvious ones to get out of the way?
Over-reliance on future tech.
Yeah, because there's a balance, right?
Yeah.
Future tech is massively important, but I think everyone would agree that Breakpoint just went to a level. And it's weird because I have seen people defend it by saying, there are drones. We do use drones. What are people complaining about? And it's like, yeah, we do, but, what army or what...
They could have left it. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go on, dude. No, I was just going to say
They
what...
could have left it at the future soldier level, which would have been quite a precursor for what we're seeing in Ukraine at the moment.
Exactly.
What the drones are doing there is pretty similar to what future soldier had for a drone. They didn't need to go into the Transformers, drones take over the world type level of sci-fi that they put in there.
Yeah, because for me, sorry, when I think of drone tanks, I start to think of like the flashback sequence in the first Terminator movie and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't feel real life at all.
No.
I mean, it's got to be grounded in reality.
Yeah.
It's realism. Nothing too fantastical or far-fetched, I think. Just to get the right tone, we definitely need the proper tone.
As in the tone for the overall game? You mean like the tone for whether it's serious or whether... I mean, tonally, Breakpoint was okay, but it didn't have the... I mean, one of the things that's been brought up over and over again is that the tone, just even within the team themselves, the actual squad, was just all over the place. Like, there was just nothing there. There was just nothing. I mean, like the AI teammates in that game were pointless in a way. They had no characters at all, did they? And they didn't add to any lore or anything. And I think that threw the tone off a little bit as well.
if I can add something to that, is mostly that the world seems to don't exist outside of the player range. And we haven't this feeling while playing Wildland. You can see some flashlight from car on the mountain on the other side of the valley. And in Breakpoint, it seemed that there is no world around 300 meters radius around the player.
No,
Yeah.
well said.
Yeah.
Well said. Totally.
Yeah,
Asad Gaming has joined us as well, by the way. I don't know if he's actually on yet. Or
Yeah, hey.
Hey,
I'm
dude.
in.
Thank you so much for jumping on. We've got A Squad and G Money now, two kingpins of the Ghost Recon community, which is nice. Actually, like I said, we got some heavyweights tonight for the Ghost Recon community here. This is an all-star cast, so thank you again for everyone for jumping in. If you missed what we were talking about at the beginning, it's basically we are just having a very brief overview discussion of what absolutely must not be in the next game. We're starting with the kind of obvious things, and then we're going to start working our way through maybe the smaller things, but they could be the things that really matter to people. So I don't know if you have any. We've hit on gear score, and we've just started kind of just getting into the nitty gritty of it, basically.
Yeah. I mean, you can't have bad ballistics. I don't know if that's a topic that you guys will eventually get into, probably. So we can kind of go on par with what you were going with.
The distance, I suppose.
Render distances in Breakpoint are terrible.
Yeah, that was something like that you mentioned in your video today, that Wildlands is, a 6-year-old game, and the render distance and everything in that game just seems like it's so much better, which kind of doesn't make sense with Breakpoint being the next iteration of that game. So that's definitely going to need to be improved in whatever comes next.
One of the first videos I ever did when I started a channel, it was a lot of them were just, anyone who's known me from back then, a lot of them were just kind of messing around, and we did a video where we tested the render distance, and we managed to get, I think, a sniper hit. No, you had to be on the top of a very high mountain. I can't remember which mountain we used now. And you did have to, I'm sure other people have tried this many times, when obviously you used to have to hold somebody, you'd hold one of the bad guys in your arms. But we managed to get a hit from, I think it was 2.1 kilometers away, if I remember rightly. And it registered, and the rounds were registering even on the ground around it. Whereas Breakpoint, you get over, I think when we did some testing on this, it can differ depending on where you are. But I think the average kind of rate where the rounds don't even register, they're just, we did the same test where we held somebody for periods of time, and I think you could get a hit, you could see the round hit up to about 1K, I think, in and around. But none of them actually registered. So this guy was just getting shot in the face again and again and again, but nothing ever happened. And we dropped it down, and there were certain areas. We actually found that for some unknown reason, there were different areas in the game where it even dropped lower than about 620, 650. There were certain areas in the game where it dropped to about 480. That if you shot someone over that, it just nothing happened. It was really odd, really strange. But anyway,
And it's even worse than that, because I've done some tests on my own, and the tracer of the bullets didn't travel at the same speed that the actual bullets. So if you shoot at more than 400 meters, the hit will be recorded before the tracer of the bullet hits the ending point.
Yeah, the animation for the tracer was out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, Vaandhar, when you worked on, you talked about this a little bit before. What is the actual issue? You said you went quite deep into, into the game. Obviously, when you create the Spartan mod, What's so different about Wildlands and Breakpoint about why is it so different?
I think it's a different branch of the engine altogether. They reworked quite a lot for Breakpoint, from what I can tell. But the draw distances on Wildlands are definitely further. The textures are definitely crisper. You can see further. There's less sort of fog and kind of greyness to the air. It's more colourful. But I think the bullet drop was a big factor. Like your weapon, the ranges on the weapons actually define the bullet drop for them, which is quite mad. So basically, the bullet would drop fully by the time it hits the range of the weapon. But yeah, you can push it out, but I never did testing with the actual impact on the other end. The engine probably just calls it for some reason.
So just as a quick question, because obviously we'll go through some other things. What do you think is more important? Is it Ubisoft getting this right by putting more things in that we actually want, or do you think it is more to do with if they were to add more things that we don't want? Which one do you think is more important? Like, they could give you a good game, but fill it with so much stuff that we don't want again. Which one do you think would put people off the most? Them doing that, or them just not listening and actually implementing the stuff that we want?
I think it's putting too much in. So they went overboard with obviously the whole gear score thing. They went overboard with the tech in terms of it became part of the story as well as an add-on bit of equipment. They used the tech to explore a load of dilemmas about future AI and future technology and all those things. So that went overboard, and they put crafting in, which the game just didn't need. So they put a load of stuff in that turned people off, and that got in the way of the game, I think. So
Yeah,
for
I
me,
think
it's what they don't put in.
less is more sometimes.
Yeah.
Often heard from the community is who asked for this. Repeatedly, we get stuff that wasn't asked for, and the stuff that is asked for gets overlooked. So if they put in something that isn't asked for at the expense of something that might have been put in, then in my mind, that's a mistake.
No,
Yeah,
I agree.
It's learning to read the audience, to be fair. That's where the problem's been. It's too much about chasing trends and not enough about kind of catering to the core audience, in my
Agreed.
opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. They were
There's-
3 years too late. 3 years too late on this, frontline, whatever that was going to be, and they were trying to capture a different audience, a different gaming share market or whatever, and which I don't know. That's something that they need to definitely maybe take a step back. Obviously, that wasn't Ubisoft Paris that made that, but take a step back, look at what your core audience is, and take the feedback from the core audience and build a game for the core audience. And if you make it good enough, you will attract other players from other genres.
Yeah.
If somebody from another genre looks at it, it's like, dude, that's so cool. They're doing things that, some of these other gaming franchises aren't doing. I'm going to go play that. And then you retain your core audience as well.
I think I was watching your video earlier, the catcher with the the survey results and the what we don't want that came up, the one you put up today. And I think I saw an advert just before it came in. It was a Call of Duty one. Have they put Starlight from The Boys as a character in Call of Duty?
Yes.
They have.
So
Yeah.
so I don't want that in Ghost Recon. The crossovers to fantasy type things. I know some people love it, and the Predator thing was kind of coolish in Wildlands because I like that movie. I thought the Terminator thing, though arguably it fitted the theme of Breakpoint, was way over the top.
I
Ghost Recon doesn't need that.
Also, the
So-
Terminator thing was done too early. So if they had done the Terminator stuff like they'd done with Predator, and they'd done it as end game content as a nice, here you go, here's something to the fans, here's just something a bit different. I think we
Yes,
would
an
have
Easter egg thing. Yeah, an Easter egg thing. Yeah, I agree.
Whereas having it as an integral part of that initial story in the first couple of months was like, it's you focus more on that than you have about the core game that you're designing. Like we all know as fans that one of the most important things is always the lore within the franchise. And I think the last 2 games specifically have been really, really bad for just trying to showcase other games and other franchises, and it takes away, instead of adding a really good story within Ghost Recon, it's always, well, let's see what Sam Fisher's doing. Oh, Lara Croft's here. Just things that didn't always make sense.
I think as you've just made a really good point. And it's something that we've brought up before, but I think it's massively important. Sometimes Ghost Recon feels like everybody else gets crammed into Ghost Recon because they feel that it needs to be filled out, that it doesn't hold its own. And I totally disagree with that. I just think that's poor storytelling and bad writing. You could easily make Ghost Recon hold its own. Ghost Recon should be put into other franchises. It shouldn't be the other way around. I wouldn't actually mind if they put Nomad into Rainbow Six. It wouldn't bother me, or something like that. But it's never, they never do it that way round. It's always the other way round. Like, let's fill some Ghost Recon time with Rainbow Six characters. And I mean, honestly, if there's a new game and they add Rainbow Six, if they add like a Rainbow Six DLC, I honestly will get a bit annoyed.
You don't want to Raving Rabbits.
Yeah, no, it's like three times on the trot. I don't want that.
Yeah.
No,
I want Mario and Rabbids teammates and a little Just Dance section.
Oh my
So
lord!
that you can have a little boogie in the desert or something.
Do you know
That's
what?
why.
Go on.
No, go ahead.
No, go on.
No, I was gonna say that's why I thought in Wildlands I don't know, it was like a certain special operation, but it was the Operation Silent Spade. Like, it made sense because it was another Ghost Recon that tied into Ghost Recon. It wasn't Rainbow Six. It wasn't Sam Fisher. It wasn't Lara Croft. It was pulling from the lore that was already established. You brought back Scott Mitchell. You got introduced to Kozak, like right when he was starting out. Things like that, those kind of tie-ins would be perfect, especially for like the lore nerds. Like, I'll consider myself a lore nerd, and if they did that, I think a lot of fans would enjoy that.
Yeah,
And you wouldn't get turned off like the Rainbow Six stuff.
Yeah, I'm the same in that aspect. I'd say, like, after the last probably year, I've turned into quite like a lone nerd in that aspect. So, like, it's just nice to see them kind of bring back previous characters and, continue their story arcs. It's always nice to see other kind of Ghost members coming back in it.
So how would you guys feel about the whole Breakpoint episode and what happened there, if that becomes part of the lore and they refer back to it? Is that's something you'd like to see, or would you rather they kind of like quietly shuffle that out?
So are you saying, like, if the new game was, say, set after Breakpoint and they start talking about things that's I mean,
it means the walls exist and things like that, doesn't it? Which to me the walls were a fantastical concept in terms of 2 fantasy, because it requires you to believe that thousands of special forces operators went rogue.
Well, pretty much all of them.
Yeah, it was like Wagner
pretty much
gone mad.
the world's tier 1 operators all just dropped what they were doing and left to join the wolves
and wear strange leather overcoats.
Yeah, and then suddenly got really crap.
Yeah, couldn't shoot anything.
They could easily they can retcon it. They can retcon it, in my opinion. I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind
make Nomad wake up in a helicopter with the other 3 ghosts and like, dude, I just had a crazy dream that Walker went rogue and we were on some Pacific island.
Yeah, the Bobby Ewing comes out the shower thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't mind if we bumped into Nomad in different stages of his career later on as a side character in any future game of that. I think that would be okay in my mind.
I think one of the big things is, going forward, I know we're talking about what I wouldn't like to see, but just a quick one on something I would. I always thought it would be much better if we had like a much larger roster of characters. So then that way, even just in the background, you'll see other ghosts, and you start to build a bit of camaraderie within the teams.
Yeah, that touches back to the original as well, doesn't it? Where you had I can't remember the full number of characters you had in there, but you could basically select a team, 2 teams, which I quite liked, from a roster of operators.
Yeah.
And and it felt like a unit that, you know, where not everyone's going to go out patrol. I was quite attracted to that formation of the squad and their different skills and how you could you know, change the mission up just by taking a different set of operators with you. So I really like that about the original.
I think one thing we definitely need to, I don't think anybody would want. Remember when Breakpoint first came out and it was meant to be there was no teammates, it was just you on your own. I think they definitely need to steer away from that.
Yeah, that's sure. For many of us, I think if we have to define what Ghost Recon is, it's a third-person, squad-based tactical shooter, at least on paper. So if we define the GR franchise to be there, you can be alone in an island with no one to back you up, and be sent in a recon mission with just a t-shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
going back to the point we were talking about a little while ago about the draw distance and stuff, in that top 10 video that I did, quite a few people did mention the draw distances. And a few people were talking about, obviously, AI teammates did come up quite a bit. Now, obviously, there's loads of things. You could do a 10-hour stream on AI teammates and what they should and shouldn't be able to do. But one of the things that did come up a couple of times were people talking about that when they did the update and they tried to improve the AI teammates in a way, and I always think of A Squad having like you losing your mind over the micromanaging your AI teammates. I'll never forget your video when you did that. You did, for the anger, I could hear it. But it was people were saying about the fact that they used their weapons or they used their specials and they threw grenades whenever they felt like it. And so there's a few people in that said that really irritated them, that they might be doing something or trying to do something, and then suddenly an AI teammate would just lob a grenade somewhere. That's definitely something that I think AI teammates, you know, if you're going to do AI teammates, they need. I mean, you can't. I would be so disappointed that if we got a new game and you put it on for the first time, and you've basically got the AI teammates copied and pasted over again, pretty much, because they're pretty useless, aren't they? I mean, not that we need to go into all the things they should be able to do, but because there's plenty, but that's got to be something, right? They've got to get right next time, haven't they?
Yeah,
Well,
I think they're useless and they're too good in different places. Sorry, that sometimes they are. You know, they're a win button. You just go attack and clear the base for me, and sometimes they wreck the mission. But the thing they mustn't do is be able to walk past enemies from 5 yards away, looking at each other, pretending they can't see each other because you haven't commanded them yet. That's such an immersion breaker for me.
I mean,
Yeah.
it feel like a cheat. It did feel like a cheat sometimes, especially with things like sync shot as well. You know, just
Yeah, good point. Good point. About shooting through cover too much and whipping out a secondary that you didn't equip them with. When you getting them all out with shotguns, and you should have to live by that decision that their sync shots are only going to be a certain range. And for them to be able to do that from anywhere is kind of like, well, I might as well not bother equipping them then.
So G Money hasn't said a word yet. So come on, dude. Are you waiting to just explode? Or
No.
Come on, tell us.
I'm just listening. Hanging back.
Give us a couple of things. Give us a couple of things that absolutely can't be in there that we haven't talked about.
All right. I think for me, I'll go more on the AI and gameplay side. I think Ubisoft Paris needs to stop pretending that, and this is within different genres as well of games. We have to stop pretending that there's this magical casual audience out there that can't play video games, that they don't know what they're doing, and you need to handhold them through the entire game. So we can't make this too difficult and this can't be too hardcore. It's just like what Vassilli said. It's a squad-based tactical shooter. Make it that. Stop making AI so dumb. I don't know if you guys remember, if you were there for the entirety of the game, which a lot of us here were. There was a certain patch where they made the AI worse, and the people on the forums, community members, they were all saying the AI is bad as it is, and they made them worse. The reaction time was dumbed down. I forget what patch it was. It's little things like that that really ruin what this franchise should be. It should be a tactical shooter. We need to get to the point, like what A Squad said, ballistics. If they could figure out the rendering issues, we need to have firefights from farther. What don't we need? We don't need to have enemies who can't see me from 50 meters and every gunfight is at 90 meters. We need to get to the point where this becomes the game it's meant to be, or the franchise it's meant to be in this era. I could understand 10 years ago, 15 years ago, PS2 days, Xbox days, where you would actually see things render in front of you. But where it's 2023, render a guy 400 meters away, make a little few less leaves and bushes in the jungle so you could handle it on our PCs and consoles, and let us have real firefights out here. Let us engage with our AI teammates where I could tell this one, go there, go there. Stop it with this make pretend world of the casual market, Look at games like Fortnite. Who are like the most popular Fortnite people? It's the hardcore players who kick ass in Fortnite, and that's Fortnite. Same thing with Call of Duty. Same thing with this game and that game and that game and this game. You know what Ghost Recon doesn't have? It doesn't have a hardcore market. Why? Because it's not a hardcore game. Who are all the best Tarkov streamers, this and the other? It's not Joe Schmo Radio. It's the guy who's playing day in and day out freaking hardcore shit. That's what people want with these games. So we need to stop. Ubisoft needs to stop pretending that this shouldn't be that type of game. Make the game what it should be. A squad-based tactical shooter that's fucking hardcore, where we're in the trenches and people will flock to it.
Well said. No, so you made some really good. You made some really good points. I told you we would just go for it. It was just all come off the tongue. Well done. I enjoyed that.
I always thought it's a better Twitch watch than some of the, and if you're on Twitch TV, I mean, than some of the fast-paced shooters. Whenever I watch Rainbow Six on Twitch, I'm just bewildered by the amount of screen cuts as they move from player to player. I don't get a sense of the action develop. Where it's a slower game like Ghost Recon, which is tactical and can build. Not only has it got much better outdoor scenery with a larger sort of like viewing point of things you can see, it'd be much better to watch, more cinematic, I think, than some of those other games.
And I think with Rainbow Six, it comes back to a point that's been brought up again and again and again, is that sometimes you do genuinely, well, I honestly sometimes am baffled by some of the strange decisions that Ubisoft make. I mean, you look at a game like Rainbow Six and how when Siege came out, I really enjoyed it heavily for the first 2 years. And there was kind of this expectation, and I think they were basically saying that there's going to be a story that comes along with this. And I think a lot of people were waiting for that story, and then they went, "Oh, it's aliens." And I just remember, like, it's what? What? Hang on. What? And you're like, yeah, that doesn't fit with what the rest of the game is. It's completely, and yet they still do things like that. They still keep coming up with strange things. I mean, if you look at a game like Breakpoint, I think one of the things that the community would actually like to see is actually kind of stick to your guns for a little bit and actually do something. We mentioned Predator earlier, and I enjoyed it, and I think a lot of people enjoyed it because they loved the movie. And it was the first time that they went, "Oh, this actually feels like the movie." It just happened to fit well in the game, and it was fun. But then they've added a DLC there where they did a timed, they had a deal for X number of years, and at the end of it, they had to remove it. And you kind of think, you put all that work in, you should have put your work into something that you don't have to remove instead. And the same with Terminator, they had to remove that. Why? You've wasted time putting something in that you've had to remove later on, and now we've got less of a game because they're not there anymore. And the same with things like we had a few people comment about some of these things within the video, within the comments on that video that I did, the top 10. where people were saying there were, in Breakpoint still, there are certain collectibles that can't be collected. And there are story beats that don't go anywhere. And you think these are things that shouldn't happen. Like there shouldn't be things that point you in a direction, and when you get there, there's nothing. Like those are really, I think, kind of amateurish kind of mistakes. And yes, pretty much, the reaction from Breakpoint has probably, they wanted to kill that game off pretty quick. I think that's pretty obvious to everybody. But, those types of things, people who are not maybe hardcore, but would like to be more hardcore Ghost Recon kind of community members and fans, would have bought that game, played it, and gone, oh, the story doesn't make sense. It just did this, it did that, it didn't answer this question, it didn't do that. They just didn't bother with it. If you watch a TV show and they start giving you little clues and go, oh, this is here and that's there, and then they don't follow through with it, most people go, oh, screw that show.
Oh, actually,
Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones. Excuse me.
Just quickly on what Andy said there.
Excuse me.
If we're going to add in if we're going to add in something else, please don't let us be able to kill the suspected main boss in the first 30 seconds of the game. Do you know what I mean?
No, I like that. I like that. That's like that's another little Easter egg that, like, I think they did that in Far Cry 5, was it? I think it was 5, where if you don't arrest the guy, the game just ends. Spoiler alert.
Was it 3?
Oh, was it 3? Was it 3?
Isn't it 3 if you hung around at the beginning? And what was it?
Well, you know what? The point being is that little things like that, they thought of it, and then throughout the rest of Breakpoint, spoiler alert, like, you're just basically talking to, what is it, Josiah Hill?
Yeah.
Like, I think little things like that I think that's fine, and I think it's actually kind of cool that they think of things like that. That's like with Red Dead Redemption 2. There were like 4 endings depending on your choice and your honor. So to have little different types of things, whether it's killing a boss in the beginning or doing something different that kind of changes it, and then you go back the second time, and like, all right, let me play it again. Let me play it this way, and I can see the whole thing. I don't think it really takes away anything. I think it kind of adds, and I don't know. I would be on the opposite end of that discussion. I think that was pretty cool. And I think a lot of people tried that out at first, and then went back and played the second time to see all of Walker's cutscenes.
Yeah, but one of the downside of that is not that we can kill the main antagonist at the beginning of the game. I agree with you, G, with the Easter egg things, but in Breakpoint, you kill the main antagonist too soon. So regarding the narrative, the tension you have to complete the mission, to fulfill the campaign, fell flat about 2 hours of gameplay. After you start playing the game.
Well, let's think. I mean, we're kind of going off now, but we should not go too far into this. I don't think it really matters with the topic of the podcast. But is it that it took away, or is it that just the story sucked anyway? So there was really nothing there.
There is nothing there. There is nothing there. That's my opinion. But the fact that you kill the main antagonist so quick, you withdraw a lot because all the story is about getting revenge for Weaver's death. And if you give the player his revenge too soon, what do you have left to do?
Pick flowers, bro. The best part of the game.
Yeah.
Although I would say, don't want to spoil it. No spoilers, but I would kill Walker at the start of the game simply because, and it's another thing not to have. Sorry, but it is those kind of missions where it's an arena battle in a closed space at the end of the mission. They had far too many of those. The Predator mission, you're locked in with the Predator right at the end in a closed room. You are with the Sam Fisher mission. You're in an arena battle, a bit like the raids. The design of those closed-in battles, which have nothing like a proper Spec Ops mission of any description. You don't go into a locked room and fight it out with the enemy.
How would the people have felt had they done the same thing in Wildlands? let's say at the beginning of Wildlands, you could, you've had the game on for an hour, first time you ever played it, and you could accidentally kind of come across El Sueño and kill him. But yet the story of El Sueño and pretty much what's going on still kind of carries on in the background. I don't think that would have gone down very well.
I'd have been cool with it. Unlike G-Money, because it's a possibility in a real world, isn't it? Not
Absolutely. No, I mean, I totally agree with you that
it also gives that feeling of like this is how it works with cartels. You chop off the head of the snake, and more take its place. So I mean, yeah, it all depends.
I think the difference with Wildlands though was that a big part of the story wasn't even, if you think about it, wasn't necessarily about El Sueño. It was finding out what happened to the DEA agent. So even if you killed El Sueño, you were, a lot of it was just finding the DEA agent. So it was finding out what he had done. So that, I would be mixed on that, because there would have been enough scope if you killed El Sueño early on for, as G-Money said, like another member to rise up and take control.
Yeah, that's a good point. Quite a few people have mentioned in the comments on that video about issues with cosmetics. One thing that they don't want to see is some of these skins that were purchasable, that you couldn't split them down and break them down and just use the head and just use the different parts of it. You had to kind of wear the entire thing, and quite a few people have brought that up, and I agree, you should be able to break them down. I think it's not the most important thing in the world, but then I think customization overall is, I think it still gets really underplayed sometimes, and I think it's actually really, really important for people to be able to customize their character. I think I think even Ubisoft underplay it. And I think, do you know, the sad thing is that if you look through comments, and I'm not just talking about this video, I'm talking about videos in general, and I'm pretty sure that other people could agree with this, is that the number one thing that I think that should worry Ubisoft is just the amount of discontent people have about a next game and what they might mess up. And I'd find that kind of interesting and disturbing at the same time, because, we want them to listen. And
awesome.
You do think everyone is I'm just going through comments a minute ago while you was talking, and pretty much every other comment is, yeah, but do you really expect them to listen? Do you really expect them to do? And it's again and again and again. Someone put, I forget the name now, but someone put a great comment, and they said the top 10 things you don't want to see in the next game. Do you mean the top 10 things that they're going to put in there anyway? And it's like, don't get me wrong. I don't think we will see gear score, and I don't think we will see raids. Well, not at least in the format that they are now. But it's not like that's just one guy who's going, and you kind of go, oh, you don't see that very often. You see it all the time. And I actually think that could be one of the most important things that's actually worthy of a discussion. There are so many people out there that don't trust Ubisoft to make a good game. And
it's
really,
the listening and understanding, I think it is. But you could say they listened to people complaining about the AI teammate in Wildlands, but they didn't actually understand what people were saying. People were saying, fix the team, not remove the feature.
Well, yeah, like I went back to earlier, I remember specifically A Squad bringing that up, and like, what you literally, I think it was when the trailer dropped for the AI teammates update, and I can't remember what video it was now. A Squad, you'd probably be able to talk about this a bit more, but I remember your reaction, and it's like, wait a minute. Like, I think, what was the wording they said, that you don't have to micromanage?
Oh yeah, that was there was like, don't worry, no need to micromanage. It's like, what? I want to micromanage. Like, I don't want autonomy. Like, yeah. I feel like, and then all those comments that people are saying, I think that comes back to people like Ubisoft or the developers think they know what we want, and it's not what we want. Like the surveys and the forums, which rest in peace, like all these different places where we have given feedback, and like we kind of saw it in Operation Motherland. So hopefully they'll kind of take that next step and like expand upon what they put in the end of Breakpoint that countless people gave feedback on, and hopefully they'll use that kind of like as a blueprint maybe for the next game, which I mean obviously only time will tell, but Ubisoft needs to listen to the community, and the community is afraid that they'll put in things that they think we want instead of things we actually want. And I'm even a little concerned about that. So we'll see.
No, it's interesting. So, actually, I got an interesting question for Vaandhar. Might be able to. I don't know if he's there. I know he's muted, but I don't know if he's there.
Still here.
Yeah. So, okay. Obviously, you created the Spartan mod, and you obviously interact with people that have used the mod, and obviously enjoy it. What kind of things do people say to you that obviously you may, there's going to be things in there that I know you won't be able to do, for example, but what kind of things do people say to you like, oh, can you do this? Could you fix the game this way? You must get comments like this with people saying, well, could you make this better? What kind of things are people saying that, that this is not good and what we'd like to see them change, or can you change them?
An interesting one was that I've been asked for quite a lot was friendly fire. Because a lot of folk wanted to role play like separate members of the team in scenarios where they're not necessarily on the same team, but they can actually play against each other in the open world, which I think would have been a mode that I think would be, it's not PvPvE, but it's a step in that direction where it's I think it would be an interesting dynamic to see.
Why do you think Ubisoft wouldn't do that? Do you think it's because they think that they can immediately see people that don't necessarily maybe have, some kind of close friends to play with who are jumping into games with other people and they immediately shoot them in the back or something? Do you think they're just worried about that?
Give the hunter control.
They're worried about casual players crying. They need to stop.
I agree.
Actually, there is a point when they released the Ghost mode on Wildland. There were a lot of issue with player joining your session in an open matchmaking and ruining your save or your day. We don't have to forget that we are all adult players, but there are among us that are toxic people, and they have fun ruining each other, someone else's game.
I still think that's a small minority of people who get a lot of publicity, and at the end of the day, it would still be a benefit to the game to have these options and to create a way for the game owner to check these parameters. Do you want this on? Do you want this off? Things like that.
And you've just hit the nail on the head. Options.
Yeah.
Options are the way forward. Turn them on, turn them off.
So what they tried to do with Breakpoint was that each player in the team had their own difficulty settings, and the game would adapt to that. So you could be playing with someone that's got it on easy mode, someone that's got it on hard mode. I think they need to move away from that and have it so that the host sets the parameters for the session.
Yeah.
And then it's up to people to choose to join that. The nature of the server that's been set up.
I think, Blech, you have a story about that. When you were joined by two player and they didn't play with the same difficulty parameter, so they have you down twice or once, and they didn't realize that playing in easy mode ruin your own experience while playing.
Yeah, so actually that's a really interesting comment you just raised there. I mean, is that something? I mean, I think they were trying to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they actually tried to make sure that different players' games weren't necessarily completely changed. Just because someone else came into your game that you might be playing no HUD, they might have their full HUD on, they might be playing on the easiest setting, you might be playing on the hardest, and they wanted to make sure that that experience wasn't necessarily ruined for you. I don't have an issue with them trying to solve that problem like they did, but the only problem is that it just didn't work. It really, well, I don't believe it worked.
Everybody could have their friendly fire checked on or off. That solves it too. I'm going into a random co-op. My friendly fire is off now. I'm playing with friends. Random friendly fire is on.
Oh yeah, that's the way forward, surely. Like with anything, I mean, in the video that I made today, I mentioned about having having permadeath, and quite a few people have immediately come on the comments and went, "I don't want that." But the way forward is to, some people would like it, and I wouldn't. Do I want to use it all the time? Maybe not. I don't know. Depends on how, to be honest, it all comes down to how good. If you had permadeath for your AI teammates, if your AI teammates are like they are in Breakpoint, then God no, because they'd just be terrible. You would need improved AI teammates for that to work. But overall, I think if you have permadeath, have an option to turn it on and an option to turn it off.
Well, I mean, they did it in Wildlands. I think that's perfectly fine. You want to play ghost mode? Play ghost mode. I think they should have that option. I did plenty of streams where I called it hardcore. If I died, I started again, and plenty of people stopped by for that and enjoyed it. And I was playing with A Squad a couple months back. We were doing a ghost mode playthrough. I think ghost mode is a fine mode, and just like how the mode works, if you don't want to play it, you don't start it.
You think they didn't add a ghost mode to Breakpoint because Breakpoint was just too finicky?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
I gotta bounce, guys. Sorry, Vass.
All right, dude.
I gotta bounce.
Take it easy, Barry.
Yeah, no worries,
Nice
bud.
speaking to you. Thanks for the invite, guys.
No
Yo,
worries,
later, brother.
Speak soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Later, buddy.
Big soon.
So,
Yeah.
A Squad, you were saying earlier as well about getting more into the kind of ballistics and stuff like that. So, what
That's a
is
deep
it?
rabbit hole.
Okay, give us a brief overview of. Obviously, we know some of the main points, but what are the things that you think have to be, well, whether it's not in there or must be in there? What's the main crux for you?
I think like what G was saying, we have to have longer engagements. You look at other games like Arma and stuff that are, even with Arma Reforger, like that's on console now. So like you have I don't know if you would call Bohemia an indie developer or not, but you have a AAA developer, Ubisoft Paris, and we can't have engagements farther than like 100 and I don't remember what was it, G? 150 something meters, 135 meters or something.
Yeah, at 136, they break off and they run and start getting closer to you.
Yeah, that should not be a thing. From a rendering distance, ballistics, whatever, like you should be getting into engagements with riflemen, 300, 400, 500, 600 meters. And then like when you're creeping up on a base or something like that, if you're not doing it carefully, the snipers should be spotting you from, 8,000, 9,000 meters and be able to engage you lethally. But you should be able to return fire and not have like your bullet just, drop off the face of the earth.
Wait! You mean you actually would have to recon in a Ghost Recon game?
Actual recon, yeah.
Actual recon?
Give me Operator Drewski's line any day.
No one wants that in a Ghost Recon game, surely.
Yeah, but like with just like the actual ballistics itself, I think I've talked to G about this before. I think we talked about it on one of the tactical roundtables as well. But so many other games have, especially like Escape from Tarkov. So when it comes to the actual ballistics of a game, there's no reason that an M4 and an ACR that shoot the same round do different amount of damage. If it's shooting the same bullet, why does this gun have 25 damage per bullet and this gun has 27 damage per bullet? The bullet itself should make it so that like everything damage based should be the bullet, shouldn't be the gun. So if the gun shoots 5.56, it should do a certain amount of damage. If you switch ammo types, it could change, stuff like that.
To counter
What about
that,
muzzle
what I would
velocity?
suggest- so yeah, I was going to say muzzle velocity. So barrel length is going to actually affect damage and distance in a different way. So it shouldn't be about different weapon. It shouldn't be about different weapons doing damage. It should be, if I'm using a 10-inch barrel compared to a 20-inch barrel, that's when I should start seeing differences. Like if I'm using an M4, if I'm using an M4 platform and I'm using a 10-3, it's going to be good for short distances, but terrible at long range. If I'm using a 20-inch barrel on that same weapon, I'm going to see more lethality. I'm going to see better range, better accuracy.
And the thing is that if they could push out the render distances and push out these engagements, you're actually going to feel that, and it's going to be a main game mechanic utilizing the gunsmith to know, all right, guys, we're attacking this base. They got sniper nests at 700 meters, but we're gonna get into some CQB when we go inside. Who's rolling with what? Because if we get seen at this distance and we can't hit this guy with this because you're rolling with this weapon loadout, I'm rolling with this weapon loadout. How it is now, it's just that it doesn't matter. Anybody just use whatever you want. Hey, I got a 50 caliber sniper rifle with a suppressor on it, and nobody hears me doing stealth kills in this base. Whoopie-dee-doo. Like, it's just, I feel like they need to really fix the shooting in the game. And when you fix the shooting from the long range to the short game, now you have a wide variety of gameplay from 1,000 meters out, 900 meters, 800 meters, whatever they could push it out to the CQC that so many people have learned to love and enjoy. Even though I really don't think Ghost Recon should really be pushed that way. I think they should save that for Splinter Cell, and we should push Ghost Recon more towards the squad-based tactical shooter and more towards firefights and engagements like that. But regardless, if they can fix that, then you would actually feel that mechanic where you put on the quote unquote long barrel, the quote unquote short barrel, and it would make sense as far as ballistics.
Well, even then, as you're saying, what you're effectively starting to talk about is looking at the barrel length and going, right, I'm going to be starting for attacking for distance, and then going into CQB. So, what's the optimum barrel length in between the shortest and the longest that gives me the best between the two worlds? So you can start customizing it to go, I didn't want to be running in there with a 20-inch fucking M16 because it's just got to be unmaneuverable. But I didn't want to be trying to pop somebody for 800 meters with a 10-inch.
And then
that variety.
and then yeah, that and it's a lot of development. But instead of working on gameplay mechanics like tiered loot or gameplay mechanics like picking up flowers and crafting, it should be things like, okay, you have this barrel, but now your movement in CQC is going to be hampered because you have such a long barrel. And it probably will take a lot of time to code these types of things and create these types of things so the mechanics run fluid across the entire spectrum of weapons. But that's what people want who are playing this game. For the life of me, I don't understand how they thought tiered loot, gear score, flowers, blossoming trees. I don't know how they thought putting so much development time into that made sense rather than, let's focus on tactics. Let's focus on things like that. Well,
Does anyone remember when in one of the later updates, all of a sudden the sounds had been improved and you could hear like birds clearer and you could hear insects and stuff like that, and it was something that wasn't.
Yeah.
And you were like,
I remember when they added animals and stuff like that. I think people were complaining about that.
What? Why have you spent time on this? Like,
people are like, there's a forest, but there's no animals, so they added some.
But don't get me wrong, right? Like, if they'd given us like the most perfect tactical shooter in the history of tactical shooters, and they were at an end point where they were like, we just simply have nothing more to give you, and they went, oh, we're going to add a few more sound effects, I'd go, okay, I'm cool with that. But like there's about 5,000 things that needed to come before that, that just weren't there. And I wanted to bring up another thing that personally, which I didn't mention in the video, but I would love to see. You could look at this as an improvement, but something that I don't want to see in another game. I don't want to see the same kind of spawning. And there's different types of spawning that I don't want. We know that, some of the wolves spawning in was absolutely terrible.
Yeah.
When you got the the drone, the Azrael, and then you got the red smoke, and it was like a bloody magic show, and they just like popped out of thin air in front of you. That was so immersion breaking. But the
Yeah.
spawning that actually irritated me, and this is the kind of thing that I think most people found this particular type when they were just on with, friends. When you're in a group and, I don't know, you're taking down a base and you get shot, you're killed, and you hit the respawn button, and then you suddenly spawn in and you're like, okay, where are you? Where's everyone else? And you're like, oh, you've put me at the bottom of a mountain. I mean, this has happened to me so many, and you're like, okay, how am I going to get up there? And you're trying to get up this mountain, and you're like, no, because it's one of those mountains that this tier 1 operator just can't climb this mountain. It's just too difficult. And I spent half an hour like, okay, it's just easier for me to jump, respawn, get in a go back to a bivouac, get a helicopter and fly back. And you think, this is ridiculous. I remember when the game first came out, I don't know if anyone else remembers this, within the first few months, do you remember how bad the respawn was, that it was putting you sometimes up to 2 kilometers away from your teammates? It was terrible, and they improved it, but it was still, you can still be put 800 odd meters away, even now. And you think, that's not good. 800 meters away from your nearest teammate. And then, you can get lucky and get closer, but there's a lot of times where it's not been good. And you just think, no, that is something for me. Stuff like that, and the way that enemies pop in, that's got to be changed. And just like animals as well, just popping into the world just randomly when you're walking along, you're like, okay, there's a deer that just popped up in front of me. It didn't, for me, stuff like that didn't really happen on Wildlands, but it happens all the time on Breakpoint. So that's something for me that I want to see improved.
I was just going to say, does anyone remember in Wildlands the vehicle spawning? We used to call in a vehicle, and it would like spawn on top of buildings or on cliffs and stuff, and they never managed to get that right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
The best is when you spawned a helicopter next to the river and then it just slid down the hill into the river. And then you had a 2-minute cooldown to try it again.
As we were talking about the engagement distance and more consistent ballistic, there is something I want to raise, is how much the 2 last Ghost Recon main title make an emphasis gameplay-wise on stealth. Stealth mechanic takes, for my feeling, too much place in the game. I think, like a lot of us, when we play, we spend more time crouching than standing.
Yeah.
And it's not how I picture myself, special force in an operation. And the fact that the game reward so much a stealth approach on objective is counterintuitive to me to what a military operation is. Stealth is get in position, but once you start the action, shit hit the fans, sounds light, and it's 4th of July.
Well, I guess that's the animation issue, right? So it's like, I don't know if games in general are ever going to get away from the Sam Fisher crouching. I don't know.
Yeah, the crouching one's a really annoying one because I'm nearly 15 years active military, and I don't think I've ever seen anybody do it.
No, no, of course it's unrealistic, but we're so far into video games that it's a given that video games have this stealth mechanic, and that is the like stealth walk. You creep down really low and you stealth around, and it's ridiculous. And some games might get it better than others. And I know for Breakpoint, the crouch movement when there were no enemies around felt a lot more realistic than the one when there were enemies around, the two different types of crouches. And that's something I would love if modders could start figuring out with Breakpoint, getting into like swapping animations and things like that. Who knows?
Yeah, but see, there's one problem with that part right there. If the PC can get the modders in, then it still leaves the consoles out.
Oh yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, we could start a fund for Kleenex for all the console guys out there. You know,
I know, but I mean, it's
wipe up your tears a little bit.
I mean, it's just it's a bad part on that level. I mean, I get it. PCs have a slight better advantage on some aspects of the game, but
we're missing something really important here, though, is that there shouldn't be any need for console player tiers. There shouldn't be any need for any tiers from no matter what platform you're playing on.
Exactly.
Because
yeah, I get it too.
We shouldn't need these mods because they should be getting it right in the first place. They should be listening to what people have to say.
Or the other way, or the other direction. They should support modding.
Absolutely.
Because modders are always going to come up with something.
I mean, even us console players have ideas. We just can't implement them because we don't have any coding that we can put into the console section.
Yeah.
But if they allowed modding, there has been consoles on modding before when it's been allowed. So if they were to allow it, then that includes everybody.
They would have to support it.
Right.
Absolutely.
Or I believe, what's that new one from Arma that they're doing now? Reforger? They're doing that, and isn't that modding going over to the Xbox currently as well?
I believe that's the intention.
Because I know they're talking about getting the PlayStation into it. It's still not available yet as far as the Reforger Armor, but they allow modding, which is cool.
No, 100%. Do you think so? What do you think, everyone here? What do you think is? Let's say a trailer dropped tomorrow for a new game, and what do you think is the number one thing that someone or the community would see in a trailer that would make them lose their shit? But in a bad way. In a bad way. What's the thing that people would go, what the holy? What do you think that is?
If Nomad or Walker showed up again.
A purple-haired operator.
Judy.
First person perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I 100% agree with that one. I think you look at the reaction to Frontline, and almost every comment was, "What? Why first-person shooter?"
And it's weird too because I put up the survey video the other day, and there was a few, like the majority of people were like, oh, those are good questions, this and that, and then there was one person that just like was gonna die on that hill that the game should be first person, and I'm just like, please explain your reasoning, and I just had to stop commenting back because I'm just like, I can't reason with them. There's so many other games.
I still think the evolution of this genre is a swap between third and first. Yeah. I would love to play Far Cry in third. I bought Call of Duty because I thought they were going to give us third person and everything, and they kind of went back on it. I'd love to play DMZ and Call of Duty in third. Especially if they had really good animations. Like when Tarkov was first being developed, it was promoted as both. Like you were going to play that shit in third, and they scrapped it. And I guess because of the way the hardcore nature of it,
but there's a mod that you can do.
Yeah, but it probably looks terrible. You have to have dedicated animations.
It's like a static camera.
Yeah, it has to be done well. But you look at Rockstar games that they're doing it. Oh, I can't wait for Starfield. Starfield has it. You know, I'm gonna say hopefully it works great in both, but I don't know. I feel like that's the step moving forward. I feel like with games
It'd be
because
both.
yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
well, it's a perfect example
But,
of that from a modern perspective. So you look at the amount of people now that have went back to Wildlands and they're like, I'm loving this game again, playing it now in the first player view. You know, all right, it's a bit
yeah,
it's
and you could
perfect,
swap
but
between both views with that mod. It's really really good. You get into some tight situations. You know, you can switch to first. You want a little more perspective, you switch to third. Out in the you get gunfights at range. But I mean, I don't know. As far as like what people would see if it was like an advertisement for the game, I mean, I don't know. I guess I still think if they keep going down the arcade shooter route, I think people are just tired of that shit. This game is not Call of Duty. It can't come out every year, you know, with the same mundane shooting mechanics and people gobble it up. Like Ghost Recon is in a tier, in my opinion, it's in a tier of its own. It's in that SOCOM tier, in my opinion, and it should be developed that way. It's for the more serious tactical shooter guys out there. So I think if they just keep going down that path, I think people are going to be like, another Ghost Recon game, you know, it's
I
probably dry.
genuinely think sometimes that Ubisoft forget that they have quite a good niche within the shooting, like the gaming market for tactical shooters.
Yes, yeah.
They forget that they've got such a unique niche in its own right. Because
You've absolutely nailed that. Because as well, we're going back to console PC and things like that, is that there's barely any tactical shooters on console. So first of all, and console make up a lot of sales. So there's a load of people screaming out and are prepared to pay money and put money into something. And if they were to suddenly start changing some of these things, you could argue that that they're getting rid of that core audience. They've already pushed people to their limit by saying with breakpoints, trying to add in RPG elements and gear scores and things like that. They've already tried it once. So that's why I made the video that I did. Like, what we need is to look at Wildlands, look at what it was. It was fairly simplistic overall in the way that it delivered, which I think Vaandhar was saying earlier. And then just take that game and then take the ideas and just add them in and then just give us a new map and do the same type of thing. People don't mind that because it wouldn't feel repetitive. It's a completely new story in a new place. Like you don't, and that's the other issue, that if for some reason they were, and I think it's a valid point to bring up the first person shooter aspect because they did it with Frontline. It may be that they might be using the same engine they were using, whatever. We don't know anything about it. So they might be like, no, we're both building the same thing. But the other important thing is not just the view. It goes back to something that's been brought up a million times before. And that is people in this game love their dress up. They do. They love that. And as soon as you do that, you're eliminating the amount of people. I mean, if you went into YouTube now and just looked up outfit videos, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of them. Honestly, there's so many. People love outfit videos. And, they're from all different types of people, just want to share their stuff. They're not necessarily big channels or anything. People just want to share what they're doing. Milsim groups, things like that. You are going to push so many of these people away if you went down that route. And as A Squad just said, you're also, if they did do that, you're throwing your game. I think actually, Sandy, you mentioned it too. You're just going to it's just another first person shooter, in a massive field of loads of first person shooters.
Yeah, what would be another third person tactical shooter on console right now? Is there one? Is there another one other than Ghost Recon?
No, it doesn't exist, man.
No.
The last I can't think of one. There's different niches like Sniper Elite.
Yeah, that would be true. But like, okay, so yeah, then a third person squad based tactical shooter. It's
Oh,
literally it's in a genre by itself.
Yeah.
If you perfect that, there's nothing else. There's nothing else to compete with. That's what I've like.
I think that's where part of the problem's been, though. I think that
It's true.
because Ubisoft's had that niche for so long, that nobody's been pushing them. Do you know what I mean? Like, if, say, SOCOM...
Like they've got complacent.
Yeah, say SOCOM was released now, squad-based tactical shooter. Ubisoft would have to up their game because they'd have somebody competing within that niche.
Apart from, what about if SOCOM does get? I mean, that the rumor is it's definitely coming. So if
Heard that rumor before.
What if they give us? What if
Don't
they?
hold your breath.
What if it drops?
Yeah, really.
What if it drops and it's a third-person game and it looks amazing and it plays amazing, and then, 6 months later, a year later, whatever it might be, you suddenly get a Ghost Recon trailer and it's a first-person game. That audience that
I'm gonna go buy a PS5.
Well, the audience for Ghost Recon are going to go, oh, well, I don't need you anymore because I've got this.
I'll play SOCOM. Yeah.
Whereas if it was still in third, people go, great, now I've got 2 games to play. Whereas if it's not, I think people would just abandon it. They'd be like, well, I don't need this because, I might pick it up when it's on sale, and it will be on sale quick. I think that's the danger. And I mean, the SOCOM thing, we could talk for hours about SOCOM, but all of the rumors are there and all of the job listings have been there for over the last 2-3 years. You can look them up. They've been bringing in a hell of a lot of people, and people have worked on many interesting titles and great titles, including old SOCOM games. And the Guerrilla Studios, that half of Guerrilla Studios haven't done anything since Killzone 4. So you're talking 8 years. That side of the studio's done nothing for 8 years.
Yeah,
so something's coming, and it can't be too far away.
I think another thing, obviously they probably wouldn't show it in a trailer, is if they showed a cutscene and your character wasn't wearing anything on his head. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people like, yo, this is so bad.
Yeah.
Like I get the direction they were going with, like the dialogue and like the being able to see the facial animations and stuff, and you can't do that if you're wearing a helmet and a shamag and a face mask and blah blah blah. But it's like, it's a third person tactical shooter. It's not a narrative. It's not a third person narrative story driven game.
How about have the game do what it said it was going to do? You're being hunted.
Well, that's a conversation for what Breakpoint should have been.
Right. But if even in SOCOM, you could still have a being hunted session, or any other future game. You could, if you're being hunted, you're being hunted. I mean, look at the Unidad. They hunted you.
Oh yeah, that was a good mechanic.
Yeah, it wasn't obviously fully fleshed out because it was just like they would, even if you were hiding, they would know right where you were. But I loved that aesthetic where unless you escape,
you were being still hunting.
They're gonna bring it. They're gonna bring it until they kill you or you escape.
Right.
You couldn't just linger in an area.
Yeah, that's what I enjoy the most with Wildland while playing Ghost Mod, because with the permadeath mechanic, you can't afford to sustain a long fight against Unidad. So at some point, even if you are the player and you are supposed to beat the game, you have to withdraw. And it's an intellectual process in the mind of the player to break contact when you want to pull the trigger until there is no enemy standing. And I think it's done well in Wildland, despite all the flow of the game. And the Ghost Mod bring this, and it's a feeling that is very reminiscent of what I felt when I played the first Ghost Recon when I was a teenager.
Well, and that
You-
that
you-
that leads back to, well, you're gonna keep going. You had more.
Yeah, you can't afford to engage a firefight. You can't win.
Yeah. I was just gonna
Well-
say that leads back to the topic of the podcast, which is what you don't want to see. What I don't want to see, and I'm sure a lot of us, I don't want to see what they did right get abandoned again. So
Ooh.
Wildlands had some
Yes.
good things, got abandoned in Breakpoint. Breakpoint has some good things. I hope they could keep that momentum moving forward, especially Operation Motherland mechanics, a dynamic world, these things that really are the immersive mode, understanding that what people want out of these open world tactical shooters. If they don't build on top of their successes, I don't know what to say at that point, because what Breakpoint did with Wildlands, they got a lot wrong and a lot of people were confused. So I'm hoping they've learned from that.
Agreed.
So I've got one in terms of things I don't want to see. I don't want to see a static open world where nothing you do makes a difference.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
And
a great
Operation
point.
Motherland hit on that. Operation Motherland, that was a good first step, which is where I was really going with that. Like they did a good job with allowing the player to kind of, shape what was going on. And if they could double down on that type of mechanic in an open world setting, they really have something there that no one else is doing in gaming. Not even, well, I mean, I was going to say not even Rockstar, but we haven't seen GTA 6 yet. God knows what's going to happen there. But when you see all these new games coming out now, it's the same formula over and over and over again. And Operation Motherland, it kind of gets slept on now that I think about it, as far as in the video game industry, what Ubisoft did there. Because that is a really interesting game mechanic, to where you are changing the actual things within the open world. So, I mean, we'll see.
That's a
And
really
Yeah.
good point.
if
Yeah,
you think
definitely. I want
about
to see
it,
dynamic.
yeah, it's not that much of a change. The player does something, and the world reacts, and it's just a parameter that is shifted. It's not much of coding. I meant all the stuff that make Motherland a good DLC was already in the game.
And if they build on that, you can get some really interesting mechanics.
It also acts for different playthroughs if you think about it. Because if you, depending on how you affect a specific part of that region, it might play completely differently. So the next time you do it and you decide not to do that, you decide to do another mechanic, it's got added replayability in that aspect.
Yeah.
I saw a few people talking about they don't want to see invisible enemies in the next game. What do people think about that? Do you want to be able to have them and turn them off, perhaps?
I don't think optical camo should be in the game at all.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same.
I'll agree with
I
it.
mean,
It was
most
cool
mill
in Future
sims, that's
Soldier.
most mill sims. That's a banned item anyway. Is the optical camo?
Yeah. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
cool thing. It was a cool thing in Motherland because they were trying to hit you with the nostalgia, in my opinion. But like, it's
Yeah,
not needed.
I never played with it. I'm not a fan.
You want a grounded
No.
military shooter, it shouldn't be there.
I
Yeah.
agree.
You,
And
you know where it was cool? It was cool in Fallen Ghost.
Fallen Ghost is just
that was a whole
Yeah.
Fallen
other
Ghost is
level. Like that
amazing.
wasn't optical camo. That was just borderline straight invisible unless you had thermal on.
Yeah,
And
and then
even
you
then
couldn't
you
put
still
your
had to
thermal
fight.
on because you had the guys blocking it.
Yeah,
the jammer.
Oh my lord!
Oh
Yeah,
man, but it was
getting
fun.
cock-blocked.
So good though, so good. Frustrating but great at the same time. I mentioned this in the video, but I wondered if it needs delving into a little bit more. One of the things that was one of my personal issues that I would really don't want to see, but I have a funny feeling it's because it's in everyone's doing it now. It's in every game that I think is almost unescapable. I don't want to see classes. I really do not want to see classes in a game. I don't see. How can you do, as G was saying a minute ago, he wants a grounded tactical shooter. In that case, what have classes got to do with a grounded tactical shooter? Personally, I don't think they've got any business being in a tactical shooter at all. You know, if you're trying to, you're talking about tier 1 realism, and they're trying to, you know, we know it's not tier 1 realism, but they try and push that narrative on us that this is you're a tier 1 operator. Well, a tier 1 operator wouldn't go into their gunsmith or whatever and say, I'd really like this, please. And they go, no, you can't have it because you're this or you're that. And they just take what they
you
want.
don't know how to use that. No
yeah,
way.
they take they'll use the guns
Well,
that they want pretty much.
I don't
They'll use the
I don't
equipment they
think
want.
I don't think they would do that, because they tried to do that with Breakpoint, and if you guys remember, like, they took that out. So I don't think they would do that. I think that's that doesn't make any sense at this point.
As in, they took it out. As in, sorry, Sandy. As in, they took it out with the restriction on when they were restricting weapons and things like that. But they still had. But they still have. You know, I have to have. I like using the white hot thermal.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I'm
yes,
still
yes, you're right.
restricted.
You're right.
Still,
You're
yeah.
right. You should be able to have any, you know, thermal, any class item, quote unquote. Yeah, I understand what you're saying there. Yeah.
I do think that there is a counter argument for classes, but I think if you're going to do a class-based system, it's got to be based on what tier 1 operators actually do. You know,
Yeah, but
so
then at that point, you're defining your class basically on what you take out,
well,
which
no,
leads.
I had a counter argument to that a while back. So it was, what if most tier 1 operators, if you look at most like elite tier 1 units, they're all, I mean, they're all riflemen effectively, so that doesn't have to be there. They're all door kickers, but usually they'll have like 2 specialities. You know, you'll find that one guy's maybe a medic, but he's also the linguist, or you know, one guy's, you know, he's your EOD guy, but he's also your breacher. So
100% agree.
Okay, but when you're playing a game, right? Let's say you got 5 guys and you're trying to tackle an objective. One guy is gonna be, yo, we're gonna need to breach this area, right? All right. So hey, Johnny, can you be the breacher tonight? Yo, I got it for this mission. And that's how you pick out your classes. Instead of pigeonholing somebody into something, you define your class by what you take.
So what if in that aspect then, if we're going to go in the class route, it's maybe a build your own class.
Yeah, if we really have a class the way Sandy described it, I can buy it. But I prefer that the gear you define your class, and not the other way around.
Yes, I was waiting for you to say that.
Loadout.
That's a perfect way to explain it.
Class should be defined by loadout, and then different operators might have skill sets not related to gear.
Yeah.
Do you not think as well? It also comes back to what we were talking about earlier. You know, like for a lot of people out there, and you see it in comments that they do play with AI teammates, and to have these types of classes that you talk about, Sandy, if they are inbuilt into your AI teammates, that means that your AI teammates have got to be far better than what they currently are now. You know, because if you imagine your Breakpoint AI teammates and you tried to implement something like that, so you are telling your teammate, "You're my breacher, go do that." Do you trust that they would ever be able to do what you're asking them to do? That's another major issue. You've got to, if you're going to have it in the game, they've got to get it working for the teammates too. Otherwise, what's the point? You know, what's the point of having it? Which is why I would much rather you created a class, you know, as we were just saying. That works better. But I just think if they go too far and start adding, this guy's a medic, this guy's a breacher, this guy's EOD, this guy's that, I just think, how are you going to implement that for your AI teammates? I just don't think it will work.
I mean, the other risk you run with that is that once, even now, like the fact that you can have all 3 of your AI teammates with sniper rifles, do you know what I mean? Or all 3 with shotguns, and then they become overpowered in that aspect. So, you know, I think in some aspects, if you could build it so, as I said, if you had like each member of the team having maybe 2 specialities, no classes but specialities. So, you've only got one guy who's a sniper. So he's the only one that's going to carry the sniper rifle. Do you know what I mean? Like, you didn't need 6 people with sniper rifles. That kind of takes you back at the immersion.
That
You
kind
only
of
need one
that kind of reminds me of, and I don't know if most of you guys have even tried it, Insurgency, Sandstorm.
Yeah.
You are limited to so many people having so much. Now the assault guys, yes, you can have multiples of those. Snipers, you can only have one. Radio man and commander, you can only have one of. But it should go like that. You have one that you can have multiples of, but you can only have one of certain classes.
I mean, if we're really going for the open world tactical shooter, I still don't think you want to pigeonhole people into specific things. I think if a squad of guys want to roll out with snipers, that should be their prerogative. And then if they get engaged, beyond where they should, now the enemy's at 300, 200 meters. They got to break off. We all, there's only 5 of us. We all got sniper rifles. We're picking off. It's like, I kind of feel like you want that open world and you want the freedom to do whatever you want. I don't want programmers sitting behind a desk to say, this is how we're going to program it so they play it this way. I want them to say, we are giving them the option to do anything we put in this game and then let them have fun in the sandbox that we create. That's what I would prefer.
I agree with everything you just said. And that's really important, to be able to give you you want to play the game however you want. Because we see this is a massive part of the community. There are people that are mil simmers. There are people that are just casuals, but they can all enjoy it if the right options are there. Like we were talking about, whether it's permadeath, whether it's any of these things that we mentioned, you could have, as long as you have the option to turn them on and off, you can make a lot of people happy. But I've thought of something that just popped into my head, that I think that if they dropped a trailer tomorrow and this was on the trailer, a lot of people would get angry. And even if it showed some things that we like, I think even just the name Ghost Recon Breakpoint 2.
Oh, God, no. God, no. Oh, no.
Don't you do it.
How many people? 5 people might buy it.
And it's the same. It works in any medium. It works in movies, it works in books and things like that. If you drop something that, and we've all enjoyed Breakpoint, and lots of people do enjoy it, but we know that the game was a backward step. The sad thing is they could deliver a good game and it probably would underperform in sales just based on the name. I think so.
Yeah.
Which is, it's sad,
I mean,
really.
I would prefer Wildlands 2 versus Breakpoint 2.
Well, I was just going to say, A Squad's Wildlands 2 teaser trailer was pretty epic.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah, I felt bad for some people, dude, because some people were like, dude, I can't believe they're making it. This is awesome. And I'm just like, hate to be the bad news, but I made that.
Especially as well if it's not like on your TV or something and you just see a small thumbnail on your phone and you're like, no way.
Only one, and that's the only one you come up with in a search.
Yeah, I'm glad you gave me that.
Hey, Squad, you need to come up with a Breakpoint 2 trailer now, just so to mess with people.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine?
Just like right off of YouTube. I even like at the very end too, at the very, very end, I don't know if anybody noticed it, but like when the logo came up and then like all the little, like, I don't even know what you would call it, the little credits came up below the logo, it said like Ubisoft 2023 copyright logo and like all this other stuff to make it look like it would be legit.
Yeah.
I remember sending it to G, and she's like, "Dude, put the mouse down, dude. Stop."
It was so cool and so well done. It's an amazing fan-made trailer.
You should have put fan made at the very back.
I did.
The
original plan was to not put it at all in the title, and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to go over well. if I don't put that in the title. I
No,
was going
I
to
mean,
leave it
you-
in
you-
just the description and not put it in the title at all.
No, I mean, you could have put it at the black screen at the very end. This was fan made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? That would have been the only time ever where you would literally have got like, you could have got like 5 million views on the trailer, but lost 1,000 subscribers at the same time.
Oh my god, this is so awesome. Wait, it's not real.
Just going back to the class thing for a minute, I like the idea of developing your operatives. So maybe they specialize or they get XP for weapons that they use, or they can improve down certain routes, and you can tailor them.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
that
sure.
But
idea. So
if
because
we
I like the way that Skyrim does things, where you get rewarded for what you do, and you get better at what you do. And if the
you
game
mean
acknowledged it,
proficiency? You get
yeah,
better because you do it this. Okay. Yeah.
So basically, you start off you're kind of average, but if you use a sniper rifle, you get proficiencies in the sniper rifle, or you get XP towards improving your abilities with that weapon, and you can
That makes
develop
sense.
your squad in that way. Therefore, if you want them to use certain items and that, then they can take proficiency in those items. I like the idea of developing them.
Yeah, and if it
Building out a
can
squad.
help us to get rid of the skill tree, because the skill tree is
The skill tree, honest to God, it was like, yes, I've got a skill that now allows me to manufacture grenades from bits of wood.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Wildlands skill tree wasn't too bad compared
No,
to
that's
Breakpoint,
right.
at least.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I want also the ability, because I'm one of these hardcore player, to not be. I don't want to spend the points on the skill tree if I don't want.
Well,
And if I,
that's a conversation right there. What don't we want? I know me. I don't want talent trees. I don't want to
Yeah.
unlock night vision goggles.
Yeah.
Parachute.
Putting on your night vision goggles.
Bring in my night vision goggles.
Long range shooting.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, long
And,
range elite, the elite
Well,
skill.
We
Yeah.
had to wait long enough just for the animation of putting the night vision goggles on.
yeah,
I mean, that was about a year, wasn't it? It was about a year in, I think.
People are
Almost.
sitting on animation for
Almost.
the bipod.
Oh well, yeah. How about that then? How about not putting things in and then not actually implementing them? You know, you got a bipod, you can't use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Eh,
even to be fair, all they had to do with the bipod, because again, they fucked us up with the bipod. So what the bipod should have gave you was better accuracy in the prone.
Yeah.
That's what it should give you. But then it gave you some magic. It gave you like fucking plus 20% range, which makes no sense. Like if they're going to put stuff in and they're going to attach attributes to it, attach attributes that make more sense.
I don't want attributes though. Why do we need them? Why do you need to do like have some magic thing where it says, "Oh, now you get 20% better"? Do we need them? Like
But
if
I think
if
they
you
need instead of attributes, that needs to be like proficiencies. I mean,
Yeah, I
call
think
what you
it
want, but-
depends. It depends what the attribute / proficiency is. I don't mind the Tarkov way where if you're rocking an M4, you start at 0 and you get to, let's say, 100, and what 100 means is you reload faster, maybe you aim down sight quicker, maybe you have a little less recoil. Like, I don't mind things like that as far as the weapon systems, but I mean, what else could attributes be in these types of games?
I
I'll
mean,
tell you what,
basically, it
weapon
would be just
proficiency makes sense.
Basically, to me, it seems like, okay, the longer you play the game, the better you'll get at it. So it would be like a skill level, yes. But by the time you get to, like, if we use the levels that we've all have seen, 99 is the highest you can get. Well, you should be able to have a faster reload time because of it. You should be able to avoid sway in your shots. You can just automatically be pinpointed in. Pending. Now, if they want to add something in like wind conditions and bullet drop, now you have to actually use that.
mhm.
Yeah.
I've thought of something else that I don't want to see in the next game that I know others don't want to see too, that we don't think we've talked about. and that is specific cosmetics, whether it be weapon skins, the types of weapon. For example, I don't want to see gold guns. I don't want to see.
That's the Call of Duty in everybody now, though.
Yeah,
I don't want to see it.
I don't want to see it, but you know what? If they put it in the game for monetization reasons, it's like, who am I to tell a business what they can and can't sell, especially if it does sell? I don't want to see it either. I do not want to see it. But if if little Johnny wants to walk around with red gear and a pink gun, I'm not gonna play with little Johnny. He's gonna play with his friends. Yeah, him and all his friends are gonna buy it. They're gonna walk around with mohawks and look still. There's like some people they play like that, man.
I agree with you, Money, on this point. To be fair, like as long as it's in the store and it's something it's a choice that you want to buy, fine. But remember when they dropped that? They gave us that pink Desert Eagle.
Yeah.
As a sorry, and everybody was like, "What the fuck is this?" Like all the things you could do, a pink Desert Eagle, really? Like,
A Squad love that weapon.
What? What weapon? Sorry, I was talking to the wife.
Yes, sorry guys, but it's almost 2 a.m. So I will leave you here for now.
Yeah, dude. Thank you so much for joining us. Really
Yeah,
appreciate
take it easy.
it.
Yo, Vassilli, later, bro.
Take it off, Vassilli.
And thank you for the welcoming, and see you soon.
Take
All
care,
right.
bud. Yeah, the only good thing that I can almost imagine this new Barbie movie. She's going to be walking around carrying that pistol, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
But the only thing is, my counter argument to that is, and I totally get what you're saying, but it still adds to my frustration that they've spent time making that when they could have spent time making something that we actually wanted.
Well, you made that point before, and I think it was loud and clear. You can't make C if you didn't perfect A and B. And I think there's a lot of sporadic things that Ubisoft does in their production process where like this is good but this kind of isn't, this is good, this kind of isn't. And then at the end of the day, we're all looking there like this needs to all get perfected. Meanwhile, they've moved on to giving us, like the pink Desert Eagle. And we're like, why did you do this when this needs to get fixed? So I think if a developer can give the consumers the game that they want, at the end of the day, they can work on things like that. But when you get a Breakpoint and you're like, yo, you got a lot of work here, and then you get kind of all these things that are half-assed or don't fit where the genre of the franchise, that's when people like us were like, come on, you have all this work over here and you're making, weird guns for people to buy in the shop. And I understand the business practice of it, but consumers are still going to be pissed, especially the hardcore fan base who we just want like military type shit. We want to look cool. What we were saying before, the cosmetic. Oh yeah, you were saying before the cosmetics are a big deal, but to some people, their cosmetics are purple mohawks and gold guns. Who the hell knows? I don't know. I give up.
Titanium.
I give up.
I'm
old. Maybe that's what it is. We're just all old.
There's a couple of points that were made in the comments of the original video, which are, funnily enough, there's actually one that's come up over and over again, which is something I don't think we really talk about very often. I'll mention that in a sec. But there was a couple of interesting ones where people had mentioned about that they hate the face customization in Breakpoint because basically every face looks kind of the same. I agree with that. If you are in third person and you are seeing your face a lot, I think maybe you should be able to change it a little bit more, though some people would say it's not that important. But before I get to the point that I was going to bring up, there is actually someone on, I'm going to name him. Why not? So PackBlaze848 said, as long as the new game has a raid, I will be happy.
Oh, God.
What do think?
Whoa! Are you sure he wasn't trolling?
I initially I thought this has got to be a troll.
For our community, that sounds like trolling right there. Like that's something I would like. I would say, but I'd be 100% joking. Well, to each his own. I have no idea. I have no idea. He's the one guy raiding with Havoc right now. Still.
So, see, and a weird counter argument to that. Depending on how the raid was done, if it was done like a proper military style raid,
yeah.
like small group, raid in,
Of course. Of course.
and come back, fine. But no in the context of how it is now. Because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
I agree. But
Like,
go on, dude.
If you were doing some type of cross-border raid, where, you know, say you were in a country and you were doing a cross-border raid into another, so say you were in Bolivia, but then you done a cross-border raid into Peru to take out the other part, like another part of that cartel, fine, because that makes sense. You're jumping cross-border, you know, you're trying to be stealthy, you can't be caught. Fine, that makes a lot of sense. That sounds like something a tier 1 team would do. But, you know, just knowing the context as it is now.
Agreed. So the point that I was going to get to, which has been raised a lot, is people saying the thing that they don't want, even though it's kind of a thing that they do want in a way, is that people are saying that they have serious connection issues playing Breakpoint. And I know people have had serious connection issues playing Wildlands. Now, yeah, you get this sometimes in all games where you get connection issues, but I'm shocked just how many times it's been mentioned. Different people mentioning right now, that they have got major connection issues with Breakpoint. And some people saying that they've had it since they've had the game. And I think it goes on to another thing that got brought up again and again through the life cycle of Breakpoint, is how many major bugs and some of them seem to be on specific systems. Some of them came out after specific updates, but there were some serious game-breaking bugs. I mean, I remember getting comments for months and months and months from Xbox players saying that their characters were walking around with their arms up in like the T position, in the T pose, and just walking around. And a lot of them were also saying as soon as they jumped to Erewhon, their game crashed. And there were people saying they hadn't been to Erewhon for a year because as soon as they did, the game crashed. I mean, these are major problems that, you know, you can't have that and not get fixed, not get patched. You know, once again, you come back to the same thing that we keep discussing again and again and again. Are they listening to what people were saying? Because these things are being brought up over and over again. And yet, did they fix this issue for Xbox players? I don't think they did.
When it comes to development processes and things like that, that's something where if you're gonna release a game and it's you didn't put enough time into it, it's broken, I can't sit here and be judgmental about them not fixing it. You have to be judgmental about the fact that it was rushed out of production and released to a consumer base who paid money for it. That's the real issue. Because then after that, it's like, are you guys going to fix this? And it's like, bro, there's so much on our plate, we don't even know. You know, it's like, it's crazy. Like, you can't release a game that's that broken. Because then this is what you get.
How much were the copies of Breakpoint when they first came out, roughly? There was it
was normal.
Gold edition was what?
I think it was like,
gold edition cost me £90.
I think I paid $120 for the Ultimate Edition.
It was it was all the same normal prices, like a 60, 80, 120, something like that.
And how long roughly was it until I think I remember seeing it for
5 minutes?
It wasn't long, was it? Yeah, the same day.
It was relatively. It was quick, man. It was quick because the media jumped on it right away. The media jumped on it. Everybody knew. Everybody knew once the media jumped on it, and it was all downhill from there. So.
So a lot of people are not going to make that mistake. You know, if the new game comes out, there's 3 versions of it, and it's like the normal kind of $65 type thing, and then you've got $90 and then let's say $130. I mean, I can't see there's going to be a lot of people going, do you know what? I did this last time. I'm not doing it again.
Yeah, no, they might wait for this franchise and now the Rainbow franchise. The Clancy IP is literally being destroyed by this studio, this publisher. You know, so they got some fixing to do with these franchises.
So before we kind of finish off, is there any other kind of points that people would like to raise that they feel that we haven't mentioned? Things that should definitely not be in the next game.
I know
Is there
it's-
anything
I know
that we've
it's-
missed?
It's a fairly obvious one, but it cannot be online all the time. There has to be an
agreed.
offline. Like, I didn't mind having it like online in the background for updates if that's what's needed, but I shouldn't have to have a permanent internet connection just to want to come on and play for an hour.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
lot of people that was. I think there was even somebody that was subscribed to my channel. Like, I could not remember who it is to save the life of me, but it was right after Breakpoint came out, and they were in the military, and he said he was getting deployed to, like, I don't know, it wasn't like an active military zone, but he was getting deployed overseas or something, and he's like, I can't even just like jump on and play Breakpoint whenever I want because I have to figure out a way to make sure I have a good solid internet connection or I can't do it. Which doesn't make sense if you're going to jump into a game, especially the way they marketed it, this being, you know, the solo or, you know, if you want to play by yourself, solo survival experience or whatever. Yeah, it was kind of meant for co-op, but like you shouldn't have to have an online internet connection to play the game. And that's one of the biggest things that people have commented on different videos that I've made is like it has to have an offline, a way to play the game offline. 100% agree with that 100%.
I still see that pretty much at least 2-3 times a week. You know, between Facebook, Reddit, places like that. It's always, will there ever be an offline mode for this game? And then you like, because the guy's only been playing it for a month. You know, he's just bought it. Like, is there got to be an offline version? And then you've got to slightly break them by turning around and going, well, no, Ubisoft have absolutely just done with the game. You're not getting anything else. Just suck it up until they turn the servers off.
Did they say anything about that? Whether it was the main reason because of that was because of all the shared progression with the PvE and PvP? Was why they made it so that it was.
But they basically said that creating an offline mode would basically cause too many issues.
That's a big design flaw from the start. Then
it was because it was designed to be online all the time. I believe they said that. I'll let Andy go.
No, I was gonna say, we also have to realize that studios might do things not only for what they are telling us, but for things behind the scenes, creating certain infrastructure for the future. You know, like the NFT beta program for Breakpoint. Now it came and went, right? But was anything learned? I mean, we don't know. The always online, anything learned? We don't know. Frontline, 100-player battle royale. Who knows where, when it disappeared into the ether? What did they learn? We don't know. But something was developed, something was created. You know, these studios are developing these things and learning as they go along. So it might not always be just like, oh, we're doing this just because of this. It might just be that, you know, they're looking 5 years from now and it's like, all right, we want to develop this and kind of have it ready to roll out for the future.
And interestingly, Frontline was actually really far along. It wasn't like it was just an idea. It was really far along.
No,
that game got pinned. Yeah.
I want to know where it is. It's where is it?
Oh, it's gone. It's gone. It's
in a bin. Someone's got it in a
They have to be doing something with it.
I don't think so.
Yeah, you really think it's just gone?
I think it's gone.
I always thought that the best thing they could have done with Frontline would be
give it a third person.
Well, not even necessarily. That's going to help. But if you imagine, one of the things that was always talked about a lot was, you know, we didn't like the idea of the shared progression between the PvE and the PvP, and having it on the same server. So if they were to take Frontline, just rework it a little bit, maybe give it the option of third person view, and then release it at the same time as a new PvE game, so that the PvP side in a new game is run by a separate team, separate server, and then that way it's not interfering with Paris doing the main stuff. I think that would still work for it.
Yeah.
That could work if it was a free to play kind of thing, and they just monetized the costuming side of things and weapon skins and stuff. They could have made some money out of that, but not the game that they were working on. That is not a Ghost Recon game. It's just not. I mean, that was just there was Ghost Recon in name only.
It should have just been mercenaries.
Yeah, not to butt in here, but I actually got to bounce. I got my dinners waiting upstairs.
Yeah. No worries, dude. We are going to finish off now. Anyway, the only other thing I was going to mention was Quartz, and I think that one's an obvious one. No one wants NFTs, and I think Ubisoft have, by the looks of it, pushed that aside anyway. But no, I think
I don't know. Imagine if I know you want to end it, but I like to play devil's advocate. Imagine if a studio promised that the NFTs that you buy on their exchange will always be updated for future games, and you could use them in all of their games. I think people, for instance, Call of Duty NFTs. Boom, this amazing M4A1. It's like, oh my God, I want that. And every game it's updated, and it's like the most prestigious weapon. So 5 years from now, they update that, and it's in your account. Like, I don't know where the future goes with making accounts and having NFTs and things like that. But to play devil's advocate, I think something like that might work. Oh, here's a skin. New Ghost Recon game. Here's the most amazing Sam Fisher skin that you could buy. I mean, a Splinter Cell. Here's a Sam Fisher skin. And it's like, it's a unique skin that you buy in the Splinter Cell franchise. And every game, it's updated just for people who bought the NFT. They have a modeler, a 3D modeler that updates it every single time a new Splinter Cell comes out. I think people would actually buy that type of shit and trade for it.
Well, to be fair, on a side note to that, if you had somebody like Grand Thumb, popular YouTuber, if you could buy a Grand Thumb skin and keep progressing that through games, I think people would go for stuff like that as well.
Yeah, like icon skins.
What if they did a G Money NFT?
Oh man, I would buy it. No one else would though. But you see my point. Like, developers have to promise that these pixels are going to be updated. Otherwise, the NFT program with gaming makes no sense. Why would I buy something from 10 years ago if today it looks like a square box?
No, that's a good point. That is a good point. But I personally, from what I've seen, it looks like the NFT thing is done.
Yeah, because that's probably too much work. It might be too much work. But I think if they figured it out that way, and maybe I gave them ideas and I just ruined everybody's day. But
yeah, if NFTs are in the next game, we're going to come back to this moment and go, it was your fault. And but especially if they're how you said.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think that would work. If they got an exchange to work where they created specific skins or weapons and they were always updated in the next game because they have the money. Companies like Activision have the money to make weapons, and every new game just update them for you, and they're in your account. Every time you get in game, boom, you have that. I think that's probably the way to go.
Well,
I think companies will do that.
We'll know anyway when the first NFT we see is a G Money NFT. We'll know.
Hell yeah.
We do.
Hell yeah. A Squad's buying that. He's going to buy G Money #1.
I just want to kind of say thank you to everyone for coming on. And if you have listened all the way to the end, thank you very much. And just one more time, I know I mentioned it at the beginning. Please fill out the survey, share the survey. It's the only way that we can. There isn't really any other way. Everyone's tried everything else. So, we want them to, hopefully pay attention to what we're doing, and rather than 100 different people making 100 different videos, if we can share it throughout the community, I think it would really count for something. I think it could be like, this has been shared across multiple channels, across multiple platforms, the same survey. It's not about video views. It's not about anything like that. It's just about getting the kind of crux information that the community actually want. And, we have no idea what's going on with a new game. It could be 5 years ago. It could be 10 years away. It could be,
Next
around
week.
next year. Who knows? We don't know. But that's why, because we don't know, I think that's why it's even more important to do one, because it probably means that it isn't just round the corner. It's not going to be coming out, this holiday season, which means they're probably still far into development with it. And that's why it's important that, that we can get these things seen now. So if you haven't done it, please think about doing it. It would, I think it would really help. So, and thank you for everyone who has done it. Big thank you to all of our guests tonight. Obviously, G Money, I really appreciate you coming on, dude.
Thanks for having me, brother.
It
Appreciate
was
it.
awesome. No, thank you. And obviously, Vaandhar, always love having Vaandhar on. He's especially, the Spartan mod. If you haven't ever played the Spartan mod, go and download the Spartan mod on PC. It is absolutely worth it. And obviously, A Squad, he's just had to hop off and have his dinner and didn't get time to say goodbye. But obviously, really important, really nice to have him on. And Vassilli, cool dude. So thank you for him to coming on. AI BlueFox, obviously a huge community member for a long, long time now. So that was awesome. And obviously Sandy, who I know, and if people don't know, Sandy does do a hell of a lot of work in the community. I really cannot overstate this enough. He really does. He's always online, talking to people, getting ideas, listening to people. And it's really nice to have people like that. And he does a lot of work behind the scenes here. And also to the grandpa. And, and without going into details, Grandpa's had a hard time of it of late, and he's still here and always does a great job producing the podcast for us and does a lot of work behind the scenes on the Discord and things like that. So thank you to all of you for coming on and making the podcast interesting. So thank you again. So, Grandpa, do you want to take us out?
All right. This has been a Bullet Catcher Gaming Podcast. Join us next time for another exciting episode. Just watch and join us. The Discord information is in the description. Comment, like, and subscribe. If you've liked the show, then leave a comment below. Signing off.